because remember we were talking about there being one. I don't go left or right, I don't mix. That there is one that I follow, the light that Allah has given us. If I follow most on the earth, they will deviate me from the path. And then it says, إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ. Because these people follow the dhann, يَخْرُصُونَ means that they falsify. يعني بيفتروا. They fabricate. They concoct. They make something up that's not there. Why? Because بَدْيُرَكَّبَ الْأُصَّةِ. You know, sometimes someone wants to fix up a story. He's telling a story. He puts his 7 herbs and spices and his salt and pepper to make the story look delicious. You know? They want to tell someone, or I could be saying to someone, so-and-so said this about you. And you turn around and say, did you hear it? And he says, you know, if I said I heard it from someone else, it's not going to carry the same weight. Yes, I heard it. Was it exactly that? Yes, it was exactly that. Just to make sure that they follow through with the story. So they don't follow any evidence. They don't follow. It's like the stock forecasters. You notice the stocks, how they go up and drop? It's speculation. They just speculate. Someone says something and something drops. It's another thing you might see, appraisal. You know when they do appraisals? So that, you know what's the value? They say, yeah, it's worth about that much. A more relevant for us, you ever been at one of the fetes and that at school and they have the jar with the jelly beans in it? And you guesstimate. That's pretty much what you're doing. Yeah, it's 300 jelly beans. And it turns out it's 1,500. Close, only 1,200 off. You know? So this is what's happened. The people become, this is when we use the word, he says, when you say someone yakhrus, you know, this is what it actually, or yakhrus is what it actually means. Because there is no foundation for what they're saying. So they're actually building their opinion on sand. So it's going to sink. Then Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَمَا يَتَّبِعُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ إِلَّا ظَنَّ إِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. Okay. If you look at this, that these people follow a suspicion or an assumption. The most people do. And then he says, إِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. It does not avail you against the truth at all. Yani it won't save you if you don't have the truth. It's pointless. It's useless. I remember once I was with one of the brothers. He was driving me to a majlis in another country. I said, brother, why are you a Shia? I just wanted to ask him. He looked at me and he said, because my parents are in it. Now my parents are Shia, then I'm Shia. And I said, did you know this is what the mushrikeen used to say to the Anbiya? That we follow what our fathers. We found our fathers following this, so we follow them. But they didn't know why they were following. They had no opinion. And the truth is our predisposition. It's why it's innate. You know, it's intrinsic. Why do you think everyone naturally looks for the Creator? Wherever you put someone, say you throw someone in an orphanage. What's the first thing they want to find when they grow? What's the first thing? Why? They want to know where they're from. They look for their parents, they want to know where their origin is. Why? Because it's a natural predisposition for me to look for where my origin is. Where am I from? We don't follow things that have no basis. We don't follow things that have no evidence. Even the Messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, who had what? Ilm? Al-Ghayb. Rasulullah. Allah says in the Quran, لا يظهر على غيبه أحد إلا لمن ارتضى من رسول. Allah Azza wa Jal says that the Messenger of God in the Quran has ilm al-Ghayb. Yet this is what the Messenger says. He says, إِنَّمَا. Remember what I said about إِنَّمَا? This and only this. إِنَّمَا أَقْضِي بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالْأَيْمَانِ. That when I judge, he says, I judge with evidence and ayman, which means what? By oath. In fiqh, alamin al-bayna. Who's the one that has to give bayna? The one that makes the claim or the one that has to defend? The one that makes the claim. Imagine we had to say the bayna has to be on the defendant. Does someone come up to you and say, God doesn't exist? And you say, where's your evidence? No, ma alayhi al-bayna. Like inti, the defendant. Does that make sense? Of course not. The one that makes the claim has to be the one with evidence. So the one that makes the claim has to give evidence. Al-ayman, the oath or the swearing is on the defendant. The one that the claim has been made against. Even though we said he had access to the unseen, everything without evidence is of little or no value. In fact, if you look at idol worshippers, they made the idol. They designed the idol. They mapped out the religion and then they followed it. It's like you create your God, you create your religion, so I'm going to worship it. This is what the Jahiliyyah, the Arab, they used to make idols like Hubal. They make the idol of Hubal out of dates. And then they worship it. When they got hungry, they eat it. They got hungry, they eat their God. Reminds me of the Christians. The Eucharist, you know. They eat their God too. So if I make my religion and my way, and then I say this is my religion, what's the problem with this? There is no authority. There's no real authority. There's no divine authority. Nabiullah Yusuf ala nabiyina wa alihi wa alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam says to the people in the prison, in hiya illa asma' sammaytumuha antum wa aba'ukum. These things that you worship are names that you created. Lat, Manat, Uzza. Do you know where they got those names? Lat from Allah, Manat from Mannan, Uzza, Aziz. All these were taken from God's names and they just made their own gods. Let's follow them. And then he says, Ma anzal Allahu biha min sultan. Allah has not given authority for this. In yattabi'una illa dhan. Once again, goes to dhan again. We go back to suspicion, assumption. That's what I assume. It's like that. وَمَا تَهْوَى الْأَنفُسِ. وَمَا تَهْوَى الْأَنفُسِ. Whatever they desire. In other words, if they've got a capricious nature, they're whimsical. So what they do is, you know, as we say, akif. I do my kif, what I think. You know, when I was telling you, when you say ala kifak, you know, the Iraqis, when they say ala kifak, the origin of this word, the kif, used to be drugs. The origin of the kif was the drugs. They say someone ala kif, it means he is on drugs. Why? Because he does what he wants, you know, what he enjoys. So they used to call that al-kif. So this is what it means. They do whatever they feel like doing. They don't care what is right and what is wrong. They don't rely on anything but evidence. Evidence, because why? I need to produce this evidence on the Day of Judgment, not he. Allah will say, you have this opinion. Yes. Where did you get this opinion from? You have to produce it. It's because you can't run with the grapevine on the Day of Judgment. You can't say, I heard it on the grapevine, someone told me. Chinese whispers, you know, where it started and where it ends. How about us? Should we generally have an opinion, a good opinion of people, or a bad opinion of people? Us, should we have a good opinion of people, or should we have a bad opinion of people? The best way to analyze what people are like, I look at yourself. When I do something, what are my motives when I do something? Me, I'm talking about myself. Sometimes my motives are ulterior motives. Why? Sometimes I want my kid to study. So I can't tell him to go study. I'll say, you want to go outside and kick the ball a bit, or do you want to play, or do you want to do something? But my ultimate motive is what? To make him study. So I play now and go, Baba, you know, we've played a bit. Do you want to read something? So I've got an ulterior motive. I've got another intention. Sometimes my motive is purely lillah. I'm by myself, no one's with me, and I pray rak'atayn lillah azza wa jal. No one's watching me, so that is purely lillah. Sometimes my motives are what? Intentions are mixed. I pray, or I'm doing something good. Half I'm helping someone, the other half, the guy thinks I'm a good bloke. So that's a mixed. See, once I have this as opinion, know that people are like you. Treat them like that. So when they do something, know that they don't have anything. And that's why when they do something, you should look at the purity of their intentions rather than what? Whatever you can find to be. Don't assume something. You can't say, for example, that someone is doing something for a reputation unless you know for sure that's what they're doing it for. I can say, however, this city, they're known for doing things for show. I can say that because if it's known, because I haven't specified who, they are known for this doesn't mean they're all like this. That's possible. Say, for example, this city is known, like New Orleans is known for partying. It's known for this. Rio de Janeiro is known for partying. They're known, these cities. But I can't say this person is partying. Do you get what I mean? Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says الشرير. الشرير is someone بيضلوا على الشر, an evil person. He says لا يظن بأحد خيرا. An evil person thinks everyone's evil. He has no good intentions of people. He always suspects everyone. He always accuses people. He always has suspicion of people. Why? Amir al-Mu'mineen says the illah. لأنه لا يراه إلا بطبع نفسه. He sees everyone the way he is. So these person, those people you sit with, he goes, all women are this. Do you know why? Because that's the type of women he chases. So he thinks all these women are like that. And he says everyone is a thief. Everyone's a liar. Remember that story you hear where the man came from the Sham and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi said, "Min ayna atayt?" He said, "Min al-Sham." He said, "How is Sham?" He goes, "It's all business and what's it called? Trade." And then Rasul says, "Sadaqt." You've said the truth. The man walks. The next one, where'd you come from? Sham. How's Sham? He says, all zina and fasad. He said, "Sadaqt." The next one comes past. Where'd you come from? Sham. He said, how's Sham? It's all ibadah, taqwa, masajid. He says, "Sadaqt." He keeps going. They said, Rasulullah, how could they all be truthful? He said, each one was looking for what they wanted. The first one was a taj. The second one was into debauchery. He was into lewdness and blood chasing stuff. The third one was a muttaqi. People come here and they see everyone in the masjid and they say, these are mu'mineen, khadamat Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. And then you'll see someone else go, you'll see them do a lot of me. Look at these, they're like animals. You've seen those people? That's what they'll talk. Just look at this man, what are they doing? That's what they talk about people. They see everyone beneath them. Just like Ibn Abil Awja, when he used to go to the Hajj and say, look at these people doing tawaf, they are all like animals. Mahal Hajj, and this is what he's looking for. To say these people are all like animals. Sometimes people say, remember I told you that story about the guy that used to turn up to the center and they used to tell him this center follow this marja, leave him. Someone will say this person that prays at this center is this, or this person is with a foreign agency. You hear this all the time. هذا عميل, subhanallah, it's given out to everyone. هذا عميل بريطاني, هذا عميل أمريكاني, هذا عميل قز القرط, as they say. Whoever, they make them a amil for someone because they want to choose this. They give, and usually this person throwing this out, he is usually involved in some Israeli web. That's usually what happens. In Lebanon, this used to always happen. There was one guy, this happened in Lebanon, there's a guy, they used to call him Khadim al-Hussein. You go to Lebanon, ask about this story. They used to call him Khadim al-Hussein. He was in the Muqawami from the beginning. Do you know this guy used to give tea inside the majlis? He used to pack up the shoes in the racks. Do you know when he used to go to the Mahwar where they were fighting? He used to take off his shoes. He says, I remove my shoes because this is Ard Muqaddasi. This is where jihad's taking place. And he used to always be one of those, he's more religious than the religious. One of the Masail in the Muqawmi said, this guy, something is wrong with him. They said, why? He said he's too religious. He's too much for the cause. You know, there's a saying that the Chinese say, the hypocrite never misses a prayer. The munafiq's always at the right place. He's always in the right place. In fact, you know, in Beirut, when the bombing took place in Masjid al-Rida, outside Masjid al-Rida, when the CIA did a bomb there, one of the umala for the CIA used to pray in the front line behind Sayyidina Muhammad, one of the umala. The one used to pray behind him. And he used to even answer questions, religious questions. And he was working for the CIA. Long beard, alamat al-sujood, you know, every stone on the sun on his hand, subha in his hand, and all this, and he was an operative. So this guy, this Khadim al-Hussein, they wanted to test him. So they gave him a ma'luma, they gave him an information that wasn't true. They told him, Mas'ul al-Fulani, one of the shuhada that was killed in Syria, they said this before he was killed. He said, this Mas'ul has a mistress in Junia, where people used to go to party and that. They just mentioned that this guy took the information. Mukhabarat Lebanon came back and told the Muqawmi that this person, somebody called from this region, they caught an ittisal, all they know is this information, 1, 2, 3. They knew the only person with this information was him because they had fabricated it to try him. So when they went to arrest him and they pulled him in, the thing that shocked them was this guy was in the cause for so long, showing himself as zealous as possible. He's very religious, but inside what? It was all an act. It was all a show. It wasn't real. Because he didn't have anything other than what? He had a suspicion of everyone. For him, everyone was doing it for show because he was doing it for show. He was involved for show, so he thought everyone is the same. He doesn't look at other people and say, this is a mukhlis lillah, this is a mu'min, because he sees everyone has no religion, because he has no religion. Finally, we look at the story of Walid ibn Aqaba. Walid ibn Aqaba was sent to a village because this village of people's nation people, they had zakat they wanted to give to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So they sent a letter, Rasulullah sent Walid to go there. Now Walid, Allah Azza wa Jalla obviously wants to show a lesson here. Walid had previous enmity with these people. That there was blood between them. You know, share, there's blood, someone's going to die. So when he came and they knew he was coming from Rasulullah, they were so happy that Rasulullah had sent someone, they came out to greet him. When they came out, he thought to himself, maybe these guys want to go to war. So he went back and said, Ya Rasulullah, these people cursed you, they renounced God, they're not Muslims, they're murtaddin. So Rasulullah took this news. What did he do? Declare war, get an army and go to war? No. Rasulullah investigates when someone gives information. Rasulullah just doesn't follow any information that's thrown at him. What do you think Rasulullah is like the people that a woman came and gave him information and they went to war in Basra? Just on a woman's information cost 30,000 lives? Rasulullah is not like this. Rasulullah sent another messenger. And this messenger, as he got close, it was close to Salat al-Dhuhr, and he heard the mu'adhin, Allahu Akbar, someone to do reconnaissance. Allahu Akbar, he said, oh my God, these guys are Muslims. They're Muslims. He came back and told Rasulullah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam mentions, the wahi comes down for this verse, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in. You know what the word fasiq means? It doesn't mean kafir. It doesn't mean munafiq. A kafir can be a fasiq. A munafiq can be a fasiq. But a fasiq is not a kafir or munafiq necessarily. A fasik is someone that does immorality, commits sin. How many people do you know commit sin? A lot. How many people do you know abstain from sin? It's only a few. So if someone comes and gives me khabar, someone gives me news, I have to investigate it. He says, فَتَبَيَّنُوا أَن تُصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالًا فَتُصْبِحُوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلْتُمْ نَادِمِينَ. So you look carefully into it, because you could harm someone out of ignorance, and then you'll live in regret over it. Why do something that you have to apologize for later, when from the very beginning, don't do it? From the very beginning, think about this, rather than move forward into this. If I act upon everything that I hear, and I move, how many issues am I going to get into? How many wars will I get into? How many problems would every time someone bijib la khabar, every time someone says something to you? And this is why people follow all kinds of religions. You know, one of the brothers I know in Sydney, he came to Australia, and he was a Muslim brother, but he was from another sect of Islam. He told me, he said, I came to this country when? He said, when I arrived, the Palestinians were getting smashed by Israelis. You know, regular news every year. A new fitna and the Ismail. It was the Nablus and Jenin, you know, they smashed them. And he said, the whole time I was watching, he said, I could see no one supporting the Palestinians except who? The Shia. So I said to my wife's family, I said, look at these people, they help, and no one else is helping. They said to him, those are kuffar. They are Rafida. They're evil. They're this, they're that. He said to me, when I sat and heard their words, I said, they're saying something, but I'm seeing something else. That's what Aqil, that's why Aqil thinks. He said, even when they went to war in Lebanon afterwards, Harb Tammuz, he said these people were doing dua against the Shia. He said, where I come from, I always pray in a masjid. I'm adding to where he goes. He said, I need to pray in a masjid. They said, we don't have a masjid, here's musalla here and there. He said, one day I'm getting off at the railway station, and as I get off, I see a mosque. I see a thing look like a mosque. So I said to my in-laws, I saw a mosque next to the railway station. And they said, yes, that is a masjid for kuffar. It's a Rafida masjid. And he said, I remembered when they called them kuffar Rafida, and I could see the Shia on TV supporting the Muslims. Isn't that right? He said, what I decided to do, I'm going to go to this kafir mosque and see. Because this is what a aqil and a mu'min does. He investigates before he acts. Because people that act without thinking are usually imbeciles. They don't think. So this person's come in to investigate. He turns up to the masjid. He says, I see outside, it says, Ashhadu an la ilaha, sorry, it says, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah. That they testify. He says that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. He said, this is the kalima. The kalima of what? A mu'min, a Muslim. He says, these guys have the same kalima as us. These kuffar have the same that they call kuffar. They say the shahadatain. And anyone that says the shahadatain is what? A Muslim. Everyone knows this. One of the stories that he was telling me, when he walked in, he said, the way he tells you the story, I met this guy while I was in the masjid, in another masjid, and this is where I met him. But the way he tells you the story, he's animated. Like he actually, because he lived it. He said, I looked around, I walked in, and I saw them praying. He said, I walked up to them and I looked at how they're praying. He said, I saw that they had a rock that they do sujood. So I listened to what they said. He said, I heard the Imam, the one leading prayer, say, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He said, all I could remember, how beautiful. These kuffar, when they go into sujood, they remember the Prophet, because if it wasn't for the Prophet, they would not know how to pray. He said, we don't do this in our prayers. He said, I sat next to the Imam. Could you imagine, like, if you did that and you sat, it looks as offensive. He said, I sat, I kept watching. He said, he finished prayers and he looked at me, he said, Assalamu alaikum. I said, Alaikum assalam. And he said, only a Muslim says salam. Could you imagine this guy investigated? Some people don't even investigate these things. He said to him, in which direction are you praying? He said, the Qibla. He says, what Qibla? He says, Makkah. He says, these kuffar have our kalima. They pray and they face the Qibla. And then he said, because the guy was a Sayyid, he said, stand up. He stood up, he took him towards the cabinet, he opened the cabinet and he took out the Mus'haf al-Sharif, Quran, and he handed it to him. He said, I opened it, the first surah, Al-Fatiha, Al-Baqarah, closed, opened the other side, Surah Al-Nas. The Quran is like ours. They have the same kalima, they pray, they face the Qibla, they have a similar Quran. Ya Alam, Ya Nas. How are we calling them kuffar? So he said, I started praying there every day, but I never told anyone about this. It was a secret. He said, but I started to like this. He said, one day, I don't know if you know Sheikh Jihad Ismail, he was lecturing somewhere. He's told me the story. He's the one that told me the story. He said, Sheikh Jihad was lecturing somewhere. He said, I grabbed my wife, I told her, there's this Sheikh, he lectures, let's go. He said, so I took my wife, and my wife watched the lecture, and she said, wow, how beautiful was this lecture? She said, I've never seen a Sheikh, because they never hear the words of Ahl al-Bayt. You're hearing the words of Zayd, Abed, and God knows who. You've never heard the words of Qala Ali, Qala al-Hasan, Qala al-Hussein. You know, imagine you listen to hadith on Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, on Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik, and that woman. You're hearing all these hadith, but you're not hearing a hadith, the pure hadith. Kalamukum nur wa amrukum rushd. The words of Ahl al-Bayt, words of guidance, you're not hearing this. And then he said, I started taking it over and over. Then one day, he said, do you know who this Sheikh is? She said, no, because you know, Sheikh Jihad's name's generic, Jihad Ismail. You can't tell what he is. It's a generic. It's not Abdul Hussein, Abdul Nabi, Abdul Imam al-Ma'sumin. It's none of that. It's Jihad. He said, he is a Rafidi Sheikh, like you call. She said, you've been feeding me poison. You took me to, he said, because her aql is different. His aql has qabiliyah for iman. It works on bayna, it works on evidence. Her aql is one of those aqls that listens to anything and follows it. Doesn't use its brain. Acts on impulse. So she doesn't have the brain that he has. Have the intellect that he has. What did he do? She went and told her family, he told me. He said, when I came home, they all beat me. Her brothers, her father, and they said, you've become one of the kuffar. Rafida. He said, you call them kuffar, but they do all the things I just said. They have the same kalim. They said, no, they are kuffar. Because they act on suspicion. They act on whatever they're told by whoever gives them a sermon. Rafida, kuffar. He hears it over and over again. His brain has become washed. This could be our problem too, my dear brothers. Someone sits there and tells you that this person and that person is like this, you have to go investigate. You have to understand before you move forward and make mistakes in your life. This will happen over and over again. You'll meet someone and they will tell you this person doesn't pray. And you have this opinion that this person doesn't pray. And later you discover what? This person actually does pray. And this person does fast. What was it? Even in, I like to always use pop culture. We used to watch, when kids used to watch this movie called Home Alone. In the beginning of the show, they had this old man, and they said he killed his whole family and he buried them. And they were just scared, they were petrified from this old man. Finally, he discovered that this old man was the sweetest person he had ever met. Why? He never actually gave it a chance. He followed what? Those that intended evil to him. And how the story spread. Sometimes, not everyone that talks is evil, but the source that gives them is evil. And the source that sets everything up. And usually that source is Iblis. Line. Iblis is the enemy that I remember I said on the first night, is the first advice God gave us. He says, Alam ahad ilaykum ya bani Adam. Allah says, did I not make a covenant with you, an agreement? La ta'budu shaitan. Ibadah does not mean pray to the shaitan. Don't be subservient to the shaitan. Don't agree to what the shaitan says. Why? Because the shaitan is aduun mubin. He's a manifest enemy. He's an open enemy. He has sworn لَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. I will not sleep. I will make sure every single one of you goes to hell. And I will abdul juhdi. Imam, do you know how difficult it is, especially you as believers? I remember I met a guy who was a Salafi, and he became a follower of al-Biths. He said to me, when I was a Salafi, he said, I used to pray on time, my prayer was perfect. He says, when I became a believer in al-Biths, he says, my prayers, I don't have that same ability. I said, brother, when you were a Salafi, you were with Iblis, he's not going to annoy you. You're on the same side. You're watching his back. Didn't they say about your Imam that when he used to walk in one valley, the shaitan would walk in the other? He didn't need to walk with him. He was doing the job for him on the other side. And now you're doing the job here. That's not the way it is. I said, did you know why we call the Mahram? You know the Mahram where you lead your prayer? Why is it called the Mahram? Because harb takes there between you and Iblis takes place. You're at war with Iblis every time you raise your hands to say Allahu Akbar. You haven't taken out the rubbish. You didn't do your homework. Did you take this? Did you drive that? Did you put oil in the car? Everything comes in. Oh, the envelope that you had on top of the shelf. Every thought you can think of is thrown at you because he doesn't want you to pray. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that the devils on the heart of the believer are like what? He says like the flies on a piece of meat. See, when you put a piece of meat outside, what do the flies? They surround it. He said that's how the devils. If you even go to pay sadaqah, they're like this. You notice when you want to pay sadaqah, everyone's like, oh, don't pay, you're going to be poor, what are you doing? It doesn't have to be shayateen, there's people that'll do that for you. They'll tell you, don't give your money, ashur tusruf, dollar, haramiyya. They're all liars, these people aren't beggars, they're businessmen. What's it to you if someone pays? The ones all the sinners steal. All the mashayikh al-haramiyya. You've heard those people. All this is that everyone بكفر الناس كلا إلا هو صالح المؤمنين هو المقدس. He's the only one that has the righteous path. Eventually he has his own channel. How many of them? He said they get their own channel and only their path is the righteous path. You see a lot of them. There's more than one. And they all sing in their own fashion and they all become, on the day of judgment, they next become a bridge for people to enter the fire of hell. My dear brothers and sisters, Islam is a deen where you have to have yaqeen. In fact, Amir al-Mu'mineen says نوم على يقين خير من صلاة في شك. To sleep with yaqeen, certainty, is better than to pray with doubt. You have to have certainty that what I'm doing is right. Don't just follow things on whims. Don't just accept something because you hear it. This is how people deviate from religion. This is why people follow different things. This is why their religion is so shaky that if someone says, oh, when's the Eid? We can't work out when the Eid is. I don't believe in God anymore. Just on something so small, they're willing to leave religion. I have to be someone that works with certainty. I have to be someone that knows before I act. Otherwise, before you know it, you'll deviate and you will flee from religion. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us firm upon on His path, to make our hearts upon Sirat al-Mustaqim, and not to take us from this path. My dear brothers, everyone and sisters, if there are sisters, everyone has a house in paradise. You know that? That's why Allah, when He says الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ الْفِرْدَوْسِ, because some people lose this house and it's given to someone else. That's what we mean by yarithun. So we ask Allah, وَلَا تَسْتَبْدِلْ بِي غَيْرِ, do not give my position to someone else. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to hasten the reappearance of our master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi. أرواحنا فداء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنوا أرضك طوعا وتمتعوا فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وعلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والأرواح موتاكم جميعا، ولقضاء الحوائج وقبول الأعمال وشفاء المرضى وغفران الذنوب وتعجيل الفرج وحسن العاقبة. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.